The day has finally arrived. Call of Duty Modern Warfare has released globally on all platforms. Make no mistake, this is still a Call of Duty game at heart, but Modern Warfare has changed quite a few mechanics and brought with it a few tweaks compared to other COD games, and so I've prepared some quick tips and tricks for you to hit the ground running. First things first, the compass at the top. Pay attention to it. When enemies shoot, they will appear on there as a red dot, and you can use this to locate their position. The larger the dot, the closer they are to you. Also, suppressors on your guns don't remove you from the minimap when firing anymore. Keep that in mind. Next, don't forget to use your field upgrades. In this Call of Duty, you have a field upgrade that you can choose that recharges slowly over time. You can have things like Dead Silence, which makes your footsteps silent and temporarily gives you a speed boost. Once you've used it, it then has a small cooldown and recharge time. There's also a munitions drop, a recon drone, and even a tactical insertion. Remember to use these when you have them available. Dead Silence is especially useful considering how strong footstep sounds are in this game. One of the main things that you'll want to do before you join a game is sort out all of your loadouts, which you can unlock at rank 4. Don't worry if you don't manage to do it in the menu though, because this Call of Duty lets you change your loadouts on the fly during a game. You can go into a loadout and change up all of your perks, attachments and weapons, so thankfully nothing is set in stone. Not only that, but if you die, you can actually copy an enemy's loadout to give it a try. Check the bottom left hand corner of the screen and you'll get a little message reminding you. It's a really good feature if you keep getting killed by a certain weapon or person, and you can just try out what they're using for yourself. Speaking of loadouts, do not forget the rocket launchers. You've got the Peeler, the Strela P, RPG and the JOKR available. And these are going to help you take out vehicles in ground war, but also things like personal radars and UAVs. Like I mentioned before, you can change your loadouts mid-game as well. So if you're dying a lot to a certain vehicle, just take a launcher as a secondary and come in with some more firepower. One thing when it comes to loadouts is that I'd advise having different ones for different situations and maps. There's a ton of variety when it comes to maps in Modern Warfare, from large-scale ground war maps and then 10v10 domination maps, all the way to close-range domination and headquarters. Certain guns like the MP7, obviously they're going to be more successful in close-range engagements, and then an LMG or assault rifle are going to give you more distance on the longer levels. So it's good to have a few different loadout presets for different situations. Lastly, if you want to play with a sniper rifle and feel as though you're missing out on some close range weaponry, or maybe you're playing with a shotgun and you'd like to have a bit more range, remember that you can equip the Overkill perk, and that will allow you to carry 2 primary weapons. That one is really useful. Moving on to kill streaks, and a quick note on using them to your advantage depending on how you're playing. Kill streaks are of course personal to you, depending on how good you are at the game and how many kills you're likely to get in a row, and that really dictates what kill streaks you're going to pick. But also remember that everyone has a bad game, so don't worry. Use your kill streaks to get back on track. If you're playing well, then opt to go for UAV and then perhaps the higher kill streak rewards like the Chopper Gunner or the VTOL. If however you're struggling and perhaps you've had a few bad games, just change it up for a short while and throw on something like Personal Radar and UAV to get you back on track. And then when it's going your way a bit more, change it up again. Go for the higher ones. Next up is movement. This time around, Modern Warfare offers up 2 different sprinting modes. You've got your standard sprint that's going to get you moving around the map a little bit faster, but then you've also got the tactical sprint that raises your gun into the air and lets you move much quicker for a short duration of time, at the risk of not being as ready if an enemy appears and you have to get your gun up. My advice for the tactical sprint is to use it as little as possible. It's great for bridging a gap or getting across a road or into cover quickly, but more often than not, it's going to get you killed. In fact, sprinting in general can get you killed quite a lot in this game. You've really got to check your angles and work through each area reasonably methodically to be successful. The time to kill is so quick that if someone gets the drop on you in this game, it's going to be hard to survive. The standard aiming down the sight speed on most weapons is quite low too, and it can be increased or decreased with certain weapon attachments in Gunsmith. Depending on what you're running will really dictate how you want to play. If you have a gun with great control but a slower aim down the sight speed, you may want to sit back a little bit more and play defensive. There are some other cool movement touches in the game too. For instance, when you have a tactical or a grenade primed, you can still shoot because you've got your gun out. It's actually quite hard to get into the habit of doing it though, because you're so used to being vulnerable when holding a grenade in other games, but it's a nice touch. You just hold the grenade or tactical key down and it will hold it in your hand until you release the button to throw it away, or if it's a grenade that you've cooked, you blow yourself up, which isn't advisable. But if you're holding something like a stun or a flash, you can hip fire with your weapon while it's still primed. Likewise, when you're climbing ladders, you get your pistol out and you can shoot with it too, so no longer are you completely vulnerable when climbing. Those are just cool touches that you may not notice straight away, but a lot of thought has obviously gone into them. And I mentioned this in my beta video too, but also use doors to your advantage. Doors may seem simple enough, but they have some flexibility in Modern Warfare. You can open them normally, or you can smash through. But if you aim down the sight, you then get the option to peek the door and crack it open really slowly if you're trying to be sneaky, or maybe you want to throw a tactical through or clear off a certain angle. Also remember to close the doors if you're holding an objective. It's not much, but forcing the enemy to open a door to get you can make the difference between you getting the drop on them or not. You'll obviously see if the door is opened or exploded with a grenade or a flashbang. You can melee doors to open them too if you're in a hurry, bashing through them, and of course, like I mentioned, just sprint through if you fancy that. I'd also advise using the verticality of the game to your advantage. In Modern Warfare, because of the map design, there are so many of these little spots and roof areas where you can climb up to, and you usually get up to them by using upper areas or windows and jumping off ladders, and you can use these as both flanking routes and hiding spots, or to oversee a certain area. There are tons of these kind of areas in the ground war maps, and they are extremely advantageous. When it comes to shooting, it's worth noting that almost every automatic weapon in the game can be changed to firing semi-automatic. For the most part, rate of fire is king in Call of Duty, but if you have a high-powered rifle, it can sometimes be useful to use single fire at a distance. You can also mount weapons onto cover, which hugely reduces the recoil and helps you land shots at medium to long range. It does make you a bit more vulnerable in terms of your mobility though, so use it as sparingly as you can. You can also reload while you're aiming down the sight, something which again can be quite difficult to get into because most games don't have this, but once you've done it a few times, it just makes sense. Quite often in multiplayer shooters, you get a kill, reposition, and then reload. But if you've got a few enemies in sight and you think you can get away with it, you can reload while continuing to track them and get bullets down range and on target quicker than if you were to come out of aim down the sight and relocate. I briefly mentioned this earlier too, but be really careful with what weapon attachments you pick. Most of them have pros and cons, and a lot of them reduce the ADS time by quite a lot. Some also reduce the ready time though, or the time it takes to get your weapon out after sprinting. Keep in mind that not all attachments are created equal. Even a sight can reduce your ADS speed. So try to balance out each attachment based on its pros and cons and how you want to play. Don't just throw it on your gun because you've just unlocked it. You can read exactly what they will do to your stats with the bar graphs on the bottom. Next, let's talk footstep audio, because in this game, it's loud. You really have to be careful about how much you run around, because if there's an enemy close, the chances are they will hear you. If it bothers you a lot, you can use dead silence to make pushes quietly, and it's also worth noting how important the ghost perk can be. Teams in COD almost always have a UAV, and in this game that means that you're spotted on the minimap a lot of the time. This can be a real issue though, because when you're trying to push places or flank, you will find that players are always waiting and ready for you, simply because they're paying attention to the audio or the minimap. So using a combination of ghost and dead silence can be quite deadly. Likewise, pay attention to the minimap yourself, because it will not only get you lots of kills, but it will save your life. If you don't want to waste any time getting your favourite guns, you can complete missions to get a blueprint of them quicker. The MP7, for example, is a level 54 unlock, which is a lot of playtime. But if you head to the barracks and then multiplayer missions and then missions, you can see that challenges are available, and most of them will reward you with a weapon blueprint at the end. The Boot Camp Challenge is a 5-stage challenge that gives you a version of the MP7 at the end. You can then use this gun in a custom loadout, but because it's a blueprint, you can't change anything related to the gun, nor will you earn XP with it until you of course unlock the actual real gun down the line. but it's worth knowing for a shortcut if you want to try your favourite gun out. And finally, it's also worth noting that this Call of Duty does have crossplay enabled by default. This means that you can play with or against players on all platforms, so PC, Xbox and PS4 playing together. It's not something that you have to agree to though, but it's on by default, and if you want to turn crossplay off, go to the account settings and disable it. And that's it for now. Just like you guys, I'm getting stuck into the game myself, and I'm looking forward to learning new tricks and tips over the next few weeks as we dive in further. With that said, let me know your favourite tip and trick for Call of Duty Modern Warfare down in the comments below. A big thanks to Activision for sponsoring this video. If you liked it, leave a like. If you didn't, a dislike. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.